Hi, how are you? I think you are quite fine and enjoying life and staying a bit cautious because the second round of coronavirus is the corona wave is still there. So we have to take precautions. We have to wear masks when we go out, when we have to maintain some distance with people. I hope you're doing all those things and enjoying life really. So let us do another chapter. Let us read another story, and this time I'm going to do from the diary of Anne Frank. That is one of the important chapters from your first flight, that is part of your class 10 English syllabus, and we are going to do the story. And as I told you in the previous videos, that when we talk about any chapter in literature, we just divide it into 4 parts. What those 4 parts can be: the first part is the writer. We talk about the writer. In the second part, we talk about what? We talk about the themes. In the third part, we talk about the plot itself. It means the story. In the fourth part, we talk about the principal characters, major characters, you can say. So in this chapter 2, we would consider 4 things. That was first the writer, then we would talk about the themes that we find in the story or in that extract that we have taken from the Diary of a Young Girl, which is the name of the original book, the diary that was kept by or written by Anne Frank, whose complete name was Anneliese Mary Frank. That was her complete name was Anneliese. Let me write the complete name. It was Anneliese Mary Frank, which in short we will call Anne Frank. She was born on 12th of June in 1929, a very special date in the history of humanity, of the birth date of a little girl who created history just with her diary. It's really notable. And in 1933, I'm just telling you the brief history, the background of her life. In 1933, when the Nazis, the party created by Hitler, those people, when they came to power in Germany, they started eliminating the Jews. The Jews had to flee the nation. And thus, Otto Frank, Anne Frank's father, what was his name? Otto Frank. Otto Frank was the name of her father. He moved to Holland, where he set up a business. Okay, and then he started calling his family over there. Anne Frank's mother, Edith Hollander Frank, followed in September the same year. In 1933, he went there. In the same year, in September, her mother followed. After that, a few months later, her elder sister Margot went over there. Until then, the children had been staying with the grandparents in Germany itself at some place. After that, she moved to Holland, Margot. And 3 or 4 months after it, Anne Frank was taken over there. And she was presented before Margot on her birthday. That was a present to Margot on her birthday by her parents. So that was the small journey that began from Frankfurt in Germany, and ended in Holland. So where she was born? She was born in Frankfurt. What is Frankfurt? Frankfurt is a beautiful city in Germany that in medieval times used to be the financial capital. The city still exists, but most of the old city was destroyed in the bombing by the Allied Air Force during the Second World War. But still the city has been rebuilt. You can go and enjoy a visit over there. So that was Frankfurt, and from there she reached Holland. The city was called Amsterdam, a beautiful city, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. In Holland, which is now called the Netherlands. So they went over there and started living, and that was the place where Anne Frank started her schooling. And when she was in the 6th form, and she developed a great affection with her teacher. And when she separated from her, it was a moment of sorrow, a moment of big sadness for her. Both of them were very sad, going away from each other. But they had to go because she had to take admission in a senior school. And just then in 1940, The Nazis started, they attacked Holland, they occupied the country, and there were rules which demanded that Jews had to get educated in this school which was meant only for the Jews. And thus Anne Frank was put in a school, and there were 9 teachers in total. 7 were male and 2 were female. So that was the school she went to. In 1942, please remember the years because they become very important. On 12th of June, because it was her birthday, she was presented with a diary. And there were so many reasons. We would talk about the reasons in the chapter. But she started keeping the diary. But getting the diary was the first thing, the most important thing. She got it on 12th of June in 1942. After 2 years in 1944, in 1942 itself, they went into hiding because a call-up was there from the Nazis for Anne Frank's elder sister, and she was asked to report to a concentration camp, hiding their lives, the family members, all the people of that family. They went underground and they hid themselves in an annex that was the part of a big warehouse, and which belonged to Anne Frank's father herself. So they hid over there, and that place was going to be the residence for next 2 years. So many things happened over there. She had to exist with a few more friends who were also part of the same team who hid, and they tiptoed throughout the day. They couldn't even move or make some loud movements because there was fear they would be tracked and they would be caught. And even they could not switch on the lights because there was a danger of being caught by the Nazis. So the life was very, very tough during those times. In that small space, a cooped up space, there were so many members. Mr. Van Daan was there, his son was there, his wife was there. One or two more friends were there, the 4 members of Anne Frank's family. So many people, and they existed over there. Life was very tough. But in those tough times, she turned to her diary for relief. And she started noting her feelings down into her observations into that diary. And that became an extraordinary record, which was published after her death in 1945. And many people say Margaret and Anne Frank both died of typhus in 1945. And in 1945 itself, that camp the people were rescued by the Allied forces when they reached over there. And by that time, all the members of the Anne Frank family, except father, Mr. Otto Frank, all had died in the concentration camp. The mother, the 2 daughters, all. Father somehow got the diary, and 1 year after her death, he published it. It became so popular that it was translated in 70 languages. It became very popular the world over. And Anne Frank, she became a great figure in human history. A symbol of resisting the evil, fighting the evil purpose of Hitler, seeing life in such a mature way, keeping the account of the life in those times in a very mature and beautiful manner. So that's why we remember Anne Frank. Now let us talk about the second thing. Let me clean the board first so that we can write a few more things. Now we are going to talk about plots. There are several plots involved. As I told you, this is a diary, and most of the diaries are generally records. And they are the records of the lives of people, the things happening to them. So it was the record of each and everything, the love, the rejections, the sorrows, the happiness, her growing up and turning from a silly girl throwing tantrums, being angry at small things, to a very mature observer of life. And that brought the writer in Anne Frank out on the surface. Okay, so there are several themes. And the very first theme, I suppose, you will find a mention of an incident, and while they were hiding in that annex, the government in exile, the Dutch government in exile, which was in London, So one of the members of that government, they made an announcement that if some people were keeping an account of their lives during German time, German occupation, so those records were made public, and that gave a lot of inspiration and hope to Anne Frank. And she has started writing the diary in a very serious way. She re-edited the parts that she had written before, and she wrote in a more beautiful, accurate way. And very keen observations have been recorded in that diary. And the first theme was to maintain a record. Okay, and the second theme, to feel there were things which were still in her control. As I told you, life was very tough in those times, and people faced such things which you haven't even imagined. So when you pass through such a difficult time, you want to live in such a way or do such things that make you feel still there are few things which you can control in your life, that gives you the courage, the inspiration to live on. And that was the second theme of this Diary of a Young Girl, and that was why Anne Frank wrote that diary. The third was just writing her experiences, that how she developed from a petty girl to a mature thinker and a young lady at the age of 15. So there are several things working over there. Now let us talk about the plot. How does the story start? How does it start? Can you please guess and tell me? It starts, Anne Frank is saying or making a statement that writing a diary was most challenging thing for her. And it was not because she had never written anything like that. It was because she didn't have the faith that the world would take interest in the musings of a 13-year-old girl. And that shows so many things. That shows a lack of faith in herself. That throws light upon the relationship with the people around her. So many things it throws light upon. And then she makes the next important statement, and she says that she made it or she created it when on a very sad day or a depressing day, when she was sitting alone with her chin in her hands, and she was not even able to decide whether she should go out or should stay in, but she stayed in. And she thought this statement that paper has more patience than people. And she was so right in observing this. People are judgmental. They judge you when you share things with them. People don't have the patience to hear you out. People just keep commenting. They judge you. They criticize you. They create preconceived notions about you. And they don't have the patience to listen to you. They are eager to say what they feel. So that's why paper has more patience than people. When you write something, paper doesn't criticize you. It doesn't interfere. It has all the patience to listen to whatever you have to say. And then she tells why she started writing the diary. She talks how many people she was living with. There were 30 friends, then family members, aunts, sister, parents, some other people. But there was not a single one she could share things with, she could confide in, share her secrets with them. She felt quite alone, though she says it feels unbelievable, okay, that you don't have a single person you can confide in, but it was so in her life. And that brought her to the point where she thought of writing the diary. And the major turning point was she was gifted a diary, a beautiful diary, on her 13th birthday. And it was 12th of June in 1942 perhaps. She was given a diary and she started writing it. And she wanted to share all her things to the diary. Therefore, it couldn't be just paper. It couldn't be just an object. She declared it was going to be her friend and very dear friend. She named it Kitty, and when she started writing the diary, she writes, "Dearest Kitty," and thus she starts writing the diary. So it's how she started. And she writes in a very amusing way, in a beautiful way. The very first statement, the entire school was quaking in their boots. So what do you mean by quaking in their boots? Quaking in the boots means being nervous, being very excited, fearful about things. So what was the reason? Why the whole school, all the classes were nervous about things? It was because a meeting was going on amongst teachers, and the teachers had to decide. It was almost the end of the year, academic year, and the teachers were to decide who was going to be promoted to the next class and who was going to be in the same one, stuck in the same one. So everybody was nervous. There were two students who sat behind Annie, her friend, and they constantly argued who was going to be promoted to the next class. One said, "You are going to the next class," another one said, "No, I am not." And they had staked all their holiday savings on the same thing. One said, "You are going in," another one said, "No, I am not." The friend pleaded, Annie's friend pleaded with them not to do so. Annie had angry outbursts about them, but they didn't listen. They kept on with it. Okay, and then Annie calls the teachers very unpredictable creatures, very unpredictable creatures. Okay, why? Because you don't know who will be promoted by them and who will not. Sometimes they promoted those ones who didn't deserve it, and sometimes they kept those ones back which really deserved to be promoted. So they were the most unpredictable creatures. One thing we also missed while talking about why she started writing the diary and how she started writing the diary, Annie Frank also gives an introduction of her family. And what was the introduction? It was about her family. Her father, who married her mother at the age of 36, mother was 25 then, and he was an adorable father with all the good qualities. Then the sister and brother, and then she talks about grandma, and she loved a lot. Grandma, she caught a disease in 1941. She was operated upon, and in 1942 she died. So in 1941, she says her birthday was so simple because of all those accidents. In 1942, when she was celebrating her birthday after her death, one candle was lit for grandma on the cake. This shows how much she loved her grandmother. Let us come to the diary now. She is talking about her teachers, that how unpredictable they were. And then she says that there were 7 teachers in the school, 7 of them were males and 2 of them were females, and she maintained a very cordial, good relationship with all her teachers except one, Mr. Kissing, who didn't like her talk in the class. And since she was very weak at math, she used to talk during her class, mathematics class, and that annoyed him. So once he caught her doing that, and he punished her by giving her an essay to write, and the topic was Chatterbox. She thought first of rambling things in the notebook, just do a few pages, 2-3 pages, by keeping the words apart, keeping a lot of gaps between the words and all. But then she thought she should have some very strong arguments to convince Mr. Kissing, and she wrote that it was genetic. She couldn't do much about it. It came from her mother, who used to talk as much as she did. Mr. Kissing laughed, but in the second class, again Annie was caught doing the same, and this time he gave her another topic to write upon, and this time it was an incorrigible chatterbox. Incorrigible means one who cannot be corrected, cannot be rectified, who cannot rectify himself or herself. So incorrigible chatterbox. And this time she also worked hard and tried to gather some important and genuine arguments to convince him. But she realized that this time it was really very serious, and if she continued with the same habit, she would be punished further. That's why for 2 classes, next 2 classes, Mr. Kissing had a very peaceful time. She didn't talk in the class. And the 3rd time she was again caught doing that, and he got really very angry. He said that just because you don't rectify yourself, you were caught talking, so what? You are going to write another essay, and this time the topic was going to be quack, 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 said Mistress Chatterbox. The whole class roared with laughter. She laughed too. But this time it was a challenge to write a good essay, because all her arguments were spent writing the 2 essays. but her friend, one of her friends who was a very good poet, and the friend came to her rescue asking that she would be helped, and the friend would help her create the whole essay in the form of a poem. That was a great idea. It excited Annie Frank, and this time she created a beautiful story in the form of a poem. The story was of a father swan, a mother duck, and 3 ducklings. And she said that the three ducklings were beaten to death by the father swan because they quacked too much. And she was very happy to complete the essay because she thought Mr. Kissing wanted to play the joke on her, but this time the joke was on him. And she thought he might be angry to read the essay, but Mr. Kissing was a very good at heart. He read the essay and he laughed loudly. He enjoyed it thoroughly. He read the essay in front of the whole class. He took to the other classes he taught and shared it with the students. And then on, he allowed Annie to talk as much as she wanted. So this was the piece, the extract in your book. And there are 2 important characters. Annie Frank, you already know, she was a great girl. And she really is admirable because she had many qualities which are worth appreciating. Very ordinary girl she was in the beginning. She threw tantrums on small things, liked or disliked people, fought with them, judged people. But then in those difficult times, she molded herself into a beautiful thinker, such a keen observer of life. This is not very easy when it comes to people. When tough times come, they get destroyed. They get shattered by the strokes. But there are people who get better with the tough times. And there is a very famous statement, tough times never last, but tough people do. And that she characterizes, and that we find true when we observe the whole character of Annie Frank, that how that petty girl, intolerant girl, and the fighter by nature, how she turned herself into that calm, keen, and mature observer of life just at the age of 15. So this is the account of all her feelings, her sorrows, happiness, disappointments, frustrations, her dreams about life, her first love, her first kiss she shared with Peter and all, what she expected from the people around her. She's a great character. And the kinds of times, the kinds of things she faced, they're really very challenging. Another major character is Mr. Kissing. Mr. Kissing is very interesting, though he appears to be very, very strict, of the old tradition, you can say. And there was a saying very popular in Holland, spare the rod, spoil the child. It means the child needs to be punished to be corrected. And he perhaps might be following the same pattern. But when we see that how the sharp joke was played upon him by Annie Frank through her poem, but he didn't mind it at all. Rather, he took it in a very good spirit. So it shows he was a generous character, and his intention was not wrong to keep Annie quiet. He knew that she was not so good at maths and she disturbed other people also. She wanted her to be serious, not to talk, to be focused during the class. That was his motive. And so he wanted to succeed in that, but he was generous. And he didn't have any grudges with Annie Frank. When he read the essay, he enjoyed it. And he allowed her further. He was so convinced with her argument, with her appeal, the emotion behind it, that he allowed her to talk in the class as much as she wanted after that. So that's a beautiful story. I talked about the writer. I talked about the themes. I talked about the story. I talked about the major characters. I hope you liked it. So you are requested to subscribe my channel so that the other videos in the series may reach you. There will be videos on all the important chapters from class 10 CBSE English syllabus. And you are also requested to like this video if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Very soon I meet you with a new video. Till then, keep safe and just work hard to pass your board exams with good grades. I would be the happiest one too. And if you feel like saying something, you can write to me also on my email ID. I would be very happy to respond to any of your queries. And I'm also planning to make myself live on YouTube to answer your queries upon the chapters on which I have done the videos. Fine. So very soon all the information will go to you. And till then, stay safe, be happy. And you can write on my email ID also. That is RAJEEV, Rajiv. And you add myself, MYSELF, Rajiv myself, @ yahoo.com. So I'll be waiting for your comments. Oh, thanks. And every comment or suggestion is respectfully welcome. Thank you very much. See you soon.